Hi folks, Mike here at Cumming Historic Cemetery. Now, this cemetery appears on many lists of haunted places in Georgia. Now I can't testify to the veracity of those claims, but I can tell you that the story behind why this cemetery is supposed to be haunted is absolutely true. You can see Tammy elected to stay home tonight for obvious reasons. I have my dime store YouTube business card in the brim of my hat, not because it looks spiffy, but because just behind me is the county jail. Right over here is the local police precinct. And of course, as I mentioned, downtown is right over there. It is legal to be here, but it is not typical. So I anticipate I might be questioned. We're going to take a look around here and I'm going to show you why the cemetery is supposed to be haunted. Now here we are getting to the older part of the cemetery. Seeing some marked graves. So it's really these graves that we're here to see, these ones that are marked only by a cross. There's more of them out there. You've heard me tell you before about how we live near Lake Lanier and how that lake is indeed a big part of the life here in the community. But what that lake actually is a giant reservoir. And the Army Corps of Engineers, to make it, they dammed up the Chattahoochee River and flooded an entire area, including some towns that are actually beneath the waters. Now divers have actually gone down and found the remains of entire towns, church steeples, things of that nature. So when it came time to move those communities, they of course had to move the graves. And some of those folks had been buried in those communities for so long, it wasn't possible to figure out who they were. So what they did is they just moved the bodies en masse to a couple of cemeteries, including this one, and just buried them unknown beneath these crosses. Some of the folks that were reburied here, they were able to identify. And you see these laying flat against the ground markers that do have writing on them. And these are for folks in those communities flooded by the lake that did have some kind of identification. Even though it is close to downtown, there is a kind of a spook factor here at night. As I was getting out of my car, someone had laid on the ground in the gravel one of those party poppers. For like New Year's, you pull the little string at the end and they pop, and I stepped on it and it went off. And I almost had to go home and change clothes. So Lake Lanier itself is supposed to be haunted. It's actually supposed to be cursed for several reasons, because of the Native Americans that were removed off this land during the Indian Removal Act, and because of the displaced communities, the displaced bodies. There have been quite an unusually large number of deaths associated with the lake. There are always deaths associated with recreational lakes, but since its fairly young existence in the late 1960s, we are now coming up on 200 deaths. Not all of them from drowning in ways that you would think. Some of them cars driven into the lake because of the way it snakes into neighborhoods down creeks that, when they're flooded, wash out into the main body of water. Bodies have been dumped in the lake after having been murdered elsewhere. People have actually committed suicide in Lake Lanier. So it is a place filled with its own dark mysteries itself. In fact, some boaters out at night have reported lights on the water they thought were other boaters, but when they approach, the lights disappear. But then again, I imagine a lot of lakes have similar stories. Now this cemetery twists and turns around. It has more area than you think it would, because it is in kind of a half moon shape around downtown. That's the jail. If you hear any loud, rude remarks during this video, they're most likely being hollered from that building behind me. Very old blackened tombstone. I have to watch my step here. You see Cumming spread out around us in this little quiet space in the midst of it. All right, so we are at the geographic center of the cemetery here, where a lot of the paranormal activity is supposed to have been witnessed. Now, I have downloaded this ghost hunting app. I did some research, and it turns out that folks who are actual ghost hunters do not like smartphone or device apps for this kind of business. They much prefer the standalone hardware that was designed specifically for it. But many of them said that when push came to shove, if they had to use something like this, they would choose this app because it's not for entertainment purposes. You're just as likely to get nothing off of this as anything. Checking for any electromagnetic fields. Could be anything causing, If there is anyone out here with me, if that was you whose presence just made this meter climb, you see where this thumbprint is on this machine? Can you touch it? Just try to touch it. See, watch me. See, when I touch it, the needle goes up. Can you do that? If I'm not alone here, if somebody's with me out here, could you please make one of these buttons light up? It would be nice to hear from you. I imagine you don't get a lot of visitors out in this parts these days. You can yak at me. Just let me know you're here first, and then we'll try to get you on recording. Hi. Can you tell me what your name is? Do you know what town this is? What town are we in? Can you tell me what town we're in? Would you like for me to leave? Am I bothering you here? Am I disturbing you? Nothing paranormal so far that I can see. I do have some EVP recordings I will take home and put my headphones on and see if I can hear anything. I've also taken several still photos out here to see if anything shows up. My flashlight has fairly new batteries and it is acting funny on me. I'm not sure how much longer I'm gonna stay out here. It's a hot, humid night anyway. So far I have been lucky to not be questioned, but I'm sure some of the folks incarcerated over here, from the yells I'm hearing, are having a big time with me walking over here. By now they've reported it to somebody. So I probably don't have a whole lot longer. But so far, no paranormal activity at the Cumming Cemetery. Okay folks, no joke. Really no joke. I saw somebody walking over here. I don't anticipate that it's a ghost. I believe since the cemetery is open, wide open, since it's located where it's located, there could be somebody in here, probably someone in here other than me, but it was right over here near the center of the cemetery. But that's also where the path is to get out the other side of the cemetery, to cross over and exit the cemetery basically downtown. So I'm betting I saw a person, but it did give me a little bit of a start. So that, my friends, is the story of how Cumming Historic Cemetery came to be haunted by the spirits of those folks whose bodies were removed and planted unnamed here in this hallowed ground to make room for a vast reservoir that would benefit the future. So until the next time, this is Mike here at night from the cemetery saying bye.